Tighten up, leaders. Welcome to the Nuts and Bolts of Leadership, the show that drills into the foundations of what leadership is all about. I'm your producer and co-host, Haley Gibson.
And I'm your host, Billy Duran.
Join us as we sit down with leaders from across the country to mine for nuggets of wisdom.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the meeting room. Today, we're going to be talking about leadership because this is the Nuts and Bolts of Leadership podcast. I am the host, Billy Duran, and I'd like to welcome into the meeting room our producer and co-host, Haley Gibson. Haley, welcome to the meeting room.
Great to be here.
I'm on the edge of my seat. Today, in this new segment we have, I need to hear Leadership Nugget of the Week.
Well, I think my nugget found me this week rather than me finding it. And I say that pretty literally because yesterday I was walking through our office and just found $1 on the floor. And normally, like if I'm out and about just in the parking lot, that's a free $1. But with us being who we are as a company, that wasn't my $1. That was somebody else's $1. So really the only person I knew to go to say, what do I do with this $1 is you. So yesterday I went down to your office and said, hey, I found this and what do I do with it? And you gave the advice of post it and say, whose is this? I came back to the office this morning and it wasn't there. So I am assuming that the $1 has found its rightful owner.
Good. The punchline I thought was going to be that I took the $1 and went out and had me a Diet Coke. So today, Haley, we got a great guest. I've been looking forward to this one for a long time. Jim Allen is the CEO of Karmak, leading provider of software and business solutions for the transportation industry. Jim, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Jim, I am always a little nervous when I'm talking to people in technology field because I feel a lot of underqualified to be even in that communication. We had Andy Podner on our podcast several episodes ago, and Andy is one of those guys that makes me feel super underqualified. But I'm very excited about getting you on the podcast. The first time we met, I believe you were speaking to a group of people in a conference in Pittsburgh. And I was just drawn to your passion for leadership. And at the time, I think you were in the COO spot for Karmak, and now you've moved into the CEO in this powerhouse organization. And Jim, it's really interesting to me because we like to talk about what leadership looks like, and you actually were in that, I'm going to steal a phrase from one of our leaders, that vortex of change from CEO to CEO. Tell us a little bit about what that journey was look like, moving from COO to CEO, and what that was like for you.
Well, and thanks, Billy. Yeah, the COO role, I love that role. That was my dream job. I really enjoyed it. And there was part of me that didn't want to leave that position. But when it was asked of me to step in as the CEO, of course, I took it very seriously. But what was important to me was having a lot of support. Support from the board, support from the executive team, the employees, just everyone, customers. That was very important to me. So it's a huge responsibility. As you know, everyone is counting on you. You're responsible for everyone's livelihood. You have to own that and treat it with the utmost respect. I'm the end of the line with everything. I can't point a finger at anybody but myself. So that's a huge responsibility, and it brings a lot of humility. And I think that helped me make that transition when I talked to my wife about this is a big role that's going to be different. You have to live in it, and people are counting you from every direction. And, as I've gone through my career, when I first became a manager, I had to learn how to manage a team and manage employees. And then when I became a director, I had to learn how to manage managers, which is different. Then up the chain to director, managing managers. And now managing executives, it is different. These folks have climbed to the top of their careers and they're excellent at what they do. So a lot of my time is more personal coaching and mentoring, how to deal with stressful situations, making some decisions, prioritization, things of that nature. But, what you can never lose is I always treat people how I'd want to be treated. And I've learned bad behaviors, pointed towards me from bosses and managers that weren't always good at that. And so I dedicated myself to took a vow that I'll never do that to people. So integrity and respect, high on my list. with a big dash of humility. So that transition with the support of everyone was critical, or I don't know that I would be able to do what I do.
So, Jim, you talk about managing managers and owning it, and I mean you're hitting all the buttons. I mean these are these nuggets that we try to highlight as we go through the program, and then at the end, Haley and I will kind of pick our own what was our highlight nugget, our leadership nugget of the segment, and managing managers, managing employees and leaders, and how that evolution changes you from managing a process to managing people and then into executive. If you were to look back now, so now you're on the other side of that. If you were to look back, what was something that happened during the journey maybe that you didn't expect, maybe something you learned that was a highlight of in that transition of how to be a better CEO? So kind of what are you still learning in that CEO role?
It's such a massive job. I think as I've gone through my career, what I'm always wildly aware of, and I believe that everybody feels this. First of all, it's never what you think it's going to be. From my first manager job, I'm in charge and I'm going to make a lot of money. I get to tell people what to do. And that's the complete opposite of what needed to happen. So I've learned these things as I've gone. And the good news is that career path, it brought me to here because I was open to listening, coaching, mentoring, constantly seeking knowledge. I geek out on books and information and conversations. I need that system as well. And because so many people are relying on me, I have to be the best that I can be. So in this position, it's just that magnified, Billy. It really, truly is. And then keeping your feet grounded. That is so important to any new manager or leader. It is not about you. It is about how you're serving those teams and those people. And that responsibility is giant. And I can promise you, there's always someone up above that knows what is going on and will remind you quickly. I've seen great men fall and make big mistakes because they got wrapped around their own ego. So those are really important. The higher you go, the more you have to really have things in place in your life to prevent that from happening. One, a higher power. Two, a spouse. Because you know what? I might be able to, get by with some things with you, Billy, but my wife's going to catch it quick and she's going to remind me who I am. And then I have created relationships in my professional life within the company and outside the company. But my employees, I want them to know they can come to me and say, hey, this isn't right, or I'm worried about what you're doing. And I think those relationships are key to my success because I have to hear and listen to what they're saying. And
I love the fact that you've pointed out this peer accountability group that you're working with internally and externally, because those are critical. I'm in a group of folks that I count as my source of, at times it's a sounding board, at times it's a venting platform, at times it's hey, I need counsel on this. Those folks in my life have become such an important part of the of my journey, not just the success at Threaded Fasteners. They are contributing to it because they are a part of my peer group, accountability, counsel. Sometimes, Jim, and you know this as a CEO, sometimes you need to kind of have a little safe platform to vent a little bit. But it is an interesting journey, though, as we've moved through the organization, and so proud of you and what you've done. And I knew, like you said, I knew that you were destined for that track. I follow your stuff on LinkedIn. You have so much energy. And my question, Haley and I were kind of bouncing this around a little bit. How do you take all that energy and use that as motivating your team? You talked about meeting with them today already, and they get a lot of Jim Allen. So how do you pull all that in? Where does all that energy come from? And then how do you turn that around into motivating your team?
Yeah, that's the $1 million question. And it seems like I never run out. And, we had a leadership team this morning and we were talking about it. I'm not blindly optimistic, but I am absolutely optimistic because everything that comes to me is an opportunity to show what I'm made of. And, we've been through it at Karmak. We had a pretty big security event last year. It could have been really devastating, and it was impactful. And I realized at that moment that I had the opportunity to prove my leadership and show what I'm capable of and how I'm going to lead this team and this company through this difficult period. So I had to dig deep and I had to have my head right. That's why all those mentorships, those people outside of the company, a spiritual mentor, a business mentor, all these things are important, that you are a balanced person, because the kind of person you are dramatically impacts your ability as a leader. So you have to have a good heart and be a decent person to get through those things. So my energy comes just from a genuine place. And how I channel that, like, honestly, Billy, everything I see is inspirational to me. I draw that energy from every direction, and I am counted on for it. It's part of my job. How I deliver that to the team, oftentimes, again, at the executive level, they're highly skilled. Sometimes we have to help see the forest through the trees or prioritize things and things of that nature. But one of the biggest things for me is I'll have someone come in and they're just not sure what to do, or they're having a confidence problem, or that dreaded imposter syndrome where they just feel like they don't have it. And my job there is to remind them who they are, what they're capable of, and then I coach and mentor them to higher levels that they even thought were possible. And once they blow their own minds, I know that my job becomes easier. The people, the team that we have built across the board of this company, they are all engaged with that and understand that. But as human beings, we all have fears, doubts, and insecurities, and those demons can creep in and they can get anybody. So the camaraderie, the collaborative discussions, the culture that we've built understands that, and we deal with that aggressively. So also, I think that a really big important thing is you have to really be good at listening and being present. So that's how I channel that. And I'm sure there's times where my team is like, okay, enough of all this positivity. I got to get back to work. But they know that that's just part of who I am.
So I'm already picking up on something that you said just then. So I'm gonna find a way to help someone on my team blow their own mind. That was a pretty cool statement there. Reminding them of who they are, what they can be, pointing them to a success track, kind of that reminder of them. And what a great point. I love that. Haley?
I love the listening piece. Like, part of your role is to be a good listener. And that is just a testament to your emphasis on service and your purpose as a leader. Can you share an experience where your philosophy of service and driving towards your purpose has shaped a pivotal decision or an action that you have taken as a leader?
Absolutely. And, every day I feel like I try to focus on that, but there's absolute times. So one of the times, and I'm kind of repeating myself a little bit, but through accepting the top position at the company, I had to really understand what my servitude meant differently than ever before. So I made the decision that I will serve our employees, our customers with all that I have, with all my God-given skills and knowledge, and lead by example. And what we do at Karmak is important. What we do impacts everyone, even you two sitting there. When you think about heavy-duty trucks bringing everything that you can imagine, everything that you can see, your house, your cars, everything, the way the economy is impacted by transportation, and drawn to that purpose and serving that purpose is what makes Karmak great. We were born within this industry. Our founder came from this industry. So we take that to heart. And we know that we're there to serve the industry and the people in which that work and that puts the food on the table, which they and their children eat. And we live and breathe by that. And that is as serious and important to me as anything else.
So, Jim, I've took some time to look through your website, and I found an interesting line and sort of come off of Haley's question a little bit from a philosophy standpoint. The line reads this: fueling success through industry-leading technology. And actually, I could rewrite that to just fueling success through technology. And that's applicable in essentially every business out there. So how do you believe, being a technology company, what do you see? Because listen, the answer to this question there is on a lot of people's minds. My group is getting together in a few weeks, and one of the top things on the line is how AI and AI policies are going to be written to protect and create boundaries. So from a technology expert, what do you see as far as technology driving businesses today? And then what are going to be the consequences, parameters, and even fears around AI?
That's an awesome question. And, we live in we're in a time where we have created massive amounts of data. And when you think about what we do, which we have a management system that manages these businesses, dealers, truck and trailer dealerships, warehouse distributors, repair shops, trailer dealers. And the amount of data, the amount of parts that are sold, the service, the sales, like everything, leasing and renting trucks across North America, it is just our company. The collective amount of data is just staggering. So when you think about that, our system or any business system is really just a data repository. So it's really good at pulling the data in. So how is it meaningful? How do you pull it out in a meaningful way and make business decisions? The other thing that's really important is data and technology will drive efficiencies. So the more data you have, you can start predicting things. There's trends. And we have a reporting functionality that business owners, C-level and owners and principals can really look at and see how their business is doing and what the impact of their decisions are as they go. But as they extrapolate this data, they can find efficiencies in what they're doing. And then we partner with a software solution. We partner with them and we find ways to make that happen much more quickly. The difference between a truck shop and an auto shop is if that truck is parked, it's not making any money. And that's important and it's big. So every second that truck is sitting, somebody's losing money. So there's an urgency to that. So if I can shave off seconds or minutes or hours and get that truck back on the road, that is huge. So in my opinion, efficiency will be found out of that. Big decisions will be found out of that. And there's a huge value to that. Your second part of the question, which is so interesting, AI, artificial intelligence is a newer thing that we're all interested in, curious about, and somewhat fearful about. We've already seen in some of the results of AI videos and voices and these things on the internet that can be used for bad things. And for every white hat, there are two black hats. And what that means is every good guy, there's two bad ones, right? In technology, that we call them black hats and white hats. But AI is a tool. It can be an effective tool, but it has the potential to be dangerous. In the wrong hands, it's like a hammer. It's a tool, but if you use it wrong, you can do bad things with it. So I know that there's a lot of consideration of legislation across the country, and I think that probably needs to be looked at because it is an eye-opener for people that are really interested in crime. And I mentioned a security event. You think about ransomware, cybersecurity attacks. They're already prevalent in our world, and they are costing billions of dollars. And this is just crime. It's black hat crime. So when you start developing a technology that can fool people into thinking who they are and what they are, that adds a level of danger that needs to be watched. And so I'll be curious to see as that oversight evolves, Billy. But right now, we are absolutely engaged with AI technology. We're looking at it. We're interested in it. We are partnered with Microsoft on some initial projects that we're looking at and have some funding to do that. So we want to be on the cutting edge of the good side of that for sure. And we're excited about it because if you think about terabytes of data and understanding what AI can really truly do and help you understand that data, it can be very powerful. We just have to be careful with it.
So, Jim, I'm assuming that your counsel and advice would be to the listeners, whether you're a business owner in the CEO role or just a leader, a division, an organization, that the AI conversation are conversations that we need to be having. These are things that need to be ongoing by setting up those boundaries and being careful what data. You talked about data drives efficiency. We got to be careful about how we control data and internal controls around that. So I appreciate you talking specifically about that. Another piece that I loved on your website, Jim, and you talk about your company is big enough to support, but you're not so big that people will get lost in the shovel. Tell me a little bit about, as a CEO, how do you manage that balance of being nimble to make sure you can adjust and take care of your clients, but the confidence that you're big enough and robust enough to take care and support their needs?
I love this question because First of all, how I do it is I lead by example and continue a culture of purpose and kindness. We hire good people. You don't have to know everything. I can train a good human being and a smart intellectual human being to do just about any task that we have. Some of them come to us very highly skilled. Some of them are just looking for a chance. If you're a good human, we're going to find something for you to do. So we create a culture by hiring good, kind people. We train them up, we teach them, we mentor them, and then we have a reputation for being easy to do business because we're good people, we're good human beings. And we build and maintain these relationships and partnerships. They last a lifetime. I can listen to support calls. These people have known each other for a decade and they're friends. So we've created this culture of Karmak is just good humans to do business with. And I think people really want to connect to that. We don't outsource anything, and I'm not anti-outsourcing, but we control our culture because we do everything in-house. Our support is here in Illinois. Our development staff is in the United States. We are all here. We have a diverse workplace, but we don't offshore anything. And that's a very popular thing to do. And oftentimes it can be less expensive, but the true cost is you lose some of the control over that. You lose those relationships with the folks that are doing the work that really project your company forward. So the other thing, we can make mistakes. We own them. We keep our promises. That gives us integrity. We also do not, and this may shock a lot of people, we do not hold our customers to contracts. We have competitors that hold our customers 3 to 5 years. That's standard. We believe we want to earn your business every day. And if you want to or have to go in another direction for any reason, we do all we can to make that easy for them. We ask for a 30-day notice so that we can help them do that. But, it's a partnership. We don't want to just be a commodity. We want to be a true partner. And that comes down to relationships. I hunt and fish with these folks. I travel with them. I go to their business. I break bread with them. And our employees do the same. But it's not out of obligation. It's out of genuine love for what we do. And so, that makes a huge difference. And when you create these friendships, people start seeing you as part of that industry, not just this side vendor. I hate the word vendor. It has a place, but it doesn't have a place in my life and what we do at Karmak. So I'm blessed to be able to do that. I've made some great friends in this industry. Our founder taught me first and foremost that this is a relationship business, and it absolutely is.
Well, Jim, again, Haley, I told you that this is going to be high energy. I love Jim's energy. And I'm telling you right now, Jim, you're going to probably see coming to a LinkedIn post near you, we want to earn it every day. I can tell you that I'm going to steal that phrase. I'm going to be using that. What an awesome way to end this first part of the segment. So we're going to take a real quick break, and we come back. I'm going to ask Jim about that red, white, and blue semi truck that I see on his LinkedIn posts all the time. So we'll be right back with the Nuts and Bolts of Leadership podcast.
Threaded Fasteners is a 100% employee-owned company whose mission is to create value in and for the people we serve. So, if you're interested in learning more about how we develop a people-centric culture, or if you're interested in a customized fastener solution, send us an email at culture@threadedfasteners.com. That's culture@threadedfasteners.com.
All right, welcome back. We're on the podcast today with Jim Allen. Jim is the CEO of Karmak, and we're interested, Jim. I see it often on your LinkedIn post. Is a big red, white, and blue semi truck. Tell me the story behind that truck.
The truck it's taken on a life of its own, Billy, and it's so funny because again, what we do, we serve the heavy duty industry. Okay, so that. I just had it in my head that how can I even understand this industry to a bigger degree? And my thought was, if I really understand what our customers do and their challenges, that perhaps I could solve some problems that our customers might not be aware of or not know how to. So what better way to do that than go through the process? So I wanted to become a truck driver, but I have a day job. So I got up on stage at our big conference that first year in this position, and I announced that I wanted to buy a semi truck and I wanted a cab over. I was specific because I like the look of the old trucks, but I challenged our customers to find me one. Well, of course, they have strong opinions on which OEM brand is the best, but I started out brand agnostic from the beginning, and that was important to me. But, they were excited about it, and I really wanted to do this. I needed to get a CDL. I wanted to understand what that driver and the pressure that they feel. So a good friend of mine that runs an international dealership up in Indiana, it's Weir's International. His name's Drew Heddick, outstanding individual, calls me on a Sunday and says, I think I might have found a truck for you. It wasn't at any of his dealerships. He found it on Facebook. And so he sends me the ad, and I'm looking at it. I'm like, God, this is pretty cool. I like it. Well, he says, I'm going to go look at it for you, because he was 30 minutes away and I'm 5 hours away. So on a Sunday, this man took his time out of his day away from his family and his weekend, picked up a diesel mechanic that he's friends with, and they drove up, looked at the truck, drove it, called me and said, I think you should try to make a deal. It's solid. I had looked at hundreds of trucks up to this point myself. So I call the guy and make the deal over the phone. I can't even drive it. I had to pay the guy to drive it down. And Drew had one of his guys drive it down. They went through it at the dealership, but it was in Indiana. So I had to pay a guy to drive it to St. Louis, where it sat at another friend of mine's business, CIT Kenworth, throughout Southern Illinois, until I got my CDL. But I would go over and sit in it and start it up. I was so excited I wanted to drive a thing so bad. And part of that too was that particular dealer group sponsors a convoy for Special Olympics. And I was determined to get my CDL in time so I could drive in that convoy and be a part of that charitable fundraiser. And, it was a journey. I found somebody that had a small business that instructed truck drivers. I drove the truck, did the test, passed the test, got my CDL, got my physical, and me and my wife drove in that parade, and it was just such a great moment. But then I also learned that trucks are expensive, right? So I've had to sit in the dealership driver lounge. Now, those of you not familiar, the driver lounges in some truck dealerships can be pretty awesome. They have showers, they have all kind of different stuff in that facility. But I wanted to passionately sit in that as a customer, and I did, and I learned some things, and I wrote notes about my experience in there and shared those in conversations with that dealer principal. So the way that whole kind of evolved, it really taught me a lot about the urgency of why it's so important for our software to help them find efficiencies to get that through. Because I sat in there and I talked to truck drivers and I listened to their stories, and I still stay connected to that. So that's the real reason why I jumped into it. Now it's become, I was black when I bought it, and it just wasn't loud enough for me. So as a veteran myself and a person that really respects our veterans and first responders, I wanted to pay homage to them. So I had a good friend in my neighborhood that has a business, a graphic business, and they wrapped that vinyl wrap on there. And boy, that thing, my buddy seen it, walked into the garage and saw it, and he said, that's what freedom looks like. So that's why we call it Freedom Truck. And I started getting involved in different veteran organizations. I'm a member of the American Legion. I know a lot of veterans and people that run these different groups. So I take the truck to anything I can involving veterans, involving children, whether it's Boy Scouts, teaching them about the trucking industry, that kind of thing. So I know I kind of rambled on there, but that's where it all began.
Well, for me, what I hear in there is this radical, and we actually had some questions around this, but you've kind of answered the question without it being asked, this radical, wild idea that you put together that, again, shows your team you're all in. You just shove all your chips to the middle of the table and you're all in. You want to find out what it's like to be in a driver's lounge. You want to find out what it's like to drive the truck. It's not just about the technology. You are all in. And I think that speaks volumes about who you are as a leader. And what we can learn from that is where's the place for me to push my chips in with my team, and finding out those places and how, because really what that is you're connecting. You're connecting with your team in a way that might take you years to do that organically, but you take on an event, a crazy wild idea, some might say, but what a beautiful picture of an expression, not only of your mission, but the expression of kind of who you are as a veteran. By the way, thank you for your service to our country. But what an awesome thing. So if you want to take a glimpse at the truck, Hali, you go to Jim's LinkedIn page, and it's on there somewhere. It may be the feature photo, but I've seen it in a bunch of different photos. But what an incredible idea to get engagement with your team. Hali?
I think that's one of those like big, hairy, audacious goals that Susan Shaw had talked about back in season 1 of our podcast.
Jim Collins' book is the hairy, audacious goals. Good to great.
But I mean, those big goals, as senior leaders, we talk about those big goals. A lot of the times we're challenged with our 3 to 5 year goals. And a lot of the times we're always up here in the weeds on what that looks like. And then we kind of fall out of messaging to our emerging leaders how they can make an impact today. So how, Jim, do you balance that? How do you balance focusing on that 3 to 5 year plan for the business, but then also being in the day-to-day, especially with your emerging leaders?
You know, the timing of your question, Hali, is just incredible. We're having a lot of discussion around that. I want to take 1 second. Billy, you said I'm all in 3 times, and I counted it, which may seem weird, and it probably is a little bit, but I was on a podcast recently. It was an industry podcast, and I made a joke, and I said, people pronounce my name wrong. It's actually pronounced all in. So when you kept saying that, it really rang true because I kind of am, but my wife will tell you, I'm extreme in everything I do. You know, I've walked into the desert on a Lenten journey on a diet and exercise program, and I couldn't wait till Ash Wednesday. So I started 2 weeks ahead of it, and I've lost 15 pounds. And it's because I just think that's kind of how I'm wired. But anyway, I wanted to share that little piece with you. But Hali, you know, it's kind of like, to me, it's like running down the sidewalk. You have got to watch where you're stepping. You can trip. There's all kind of hazards. You have to pay attention to what you're doing. But if you don't look ahead and see where the heck you're going, you don't know where you're going to end up. You have to have something to aim at. You need a target. And that target can move. And that's the difficult thing in technology. It evolves so quickly. So what may be a target today may wildly change. So I believe in a 3 to 5 year or long-term plan, but I also have to steward the day-to-day very, very well and pay close attention to what's going on in the industry with technology and our marketplace, understanding what our customers do, their challenges, and helping them address those is also very important. So there's a balance for that, as you said, and you have to consider all those things. But you don't want to be so strict in a long-term strategy that you miss the boat and you're not responsive to the industry and the markets and the things of that nature. So sometimes you'll see people put a long-term strategy together and darn it, they're going to stick to it. And that's problematic when things change. So you have to have one, but you have to understand that it does need to be flexible based on certain conditions. So we're working through that right now. I've actually been working with the team for a couple of months on this and really understanding what our strategy is as a company, but also our product strategy, our offerings. You know, are we going to go to a more mobile application type thing? Are we going to standardize what we've currently been doing? So there's all these opportunities to have these. So that's really, I hope that answers your questions, but I do think there has to be a big balance to that.
So Jim, part of our messaging around that, and we're working through the same, part of our messaging around that is vision. You know, vision is this is where we're headed. The next part of that is this is how we're going to get there. But then the most critical part of it is this is your part in it. So how we message to our team, here's where we're going. Here's how we're going to get there, and here's your part in helping us get there. I love the statement that you made about stewarding the day-to-day. You know, that word stewardship is such a great word because it really is your charge. Stewardship means you are responsible for. And I appreciate you using words like stewardship. Again, it speaks to who you are, but it also is a word picture for your team. And your team is listening to the message today, just like our teams are. I know when they see your name, they're going to remember you when you came and spoke to our team back at our 40th anniversary 5 years ago. And I was telling you before we got started, it's hard to believe it's already been 5 years. Jim, we have a mission statement. We're kind of pivoting towards the kind of the end of the show here, but our mission is to create value in and for the people we serve. If you had a personal mission statement or maybe you can talk about Karmak's mission. What would be your personal mission statement?
Well, my mission statement is simple, and I do have one. Serve God by serving each other and steward the resources given to you to the best of your ability. I also have very strong personal core values. Most companies, I shouldn't say every, have core values. Mine align with them. They're just worded differently. Now, in full transparency, I ripped mine off from my military service. The Air Force core values are integrity first, excellence in everything we do, and service before self. They are aligned, they work, they are time tested, but that's what it comes down to for me.
Well, those mission statements that we have built and been building and have a lot of momentum around those things, because when we start talking about core values, we hope as our team begins to, that becomes ingrained in our organization. It becomes part of our culture, part of our language, that it didn't just become core values, but like you said, they become shared values. It's not just a mission statement on the wall. It's not just banners that we hang in the warehouse, but it really is. We want to hire people. You said that you like to hire good, kind people. And we want to hire people around our values, which are humble, hungry, and aware. These are the people we're looking for. And they become shared values when they throw their heart in to become part of this organization. So I appreciate you making a comment around how those things are in alignment and become shared. So Jim, as we wrap up, we like to talk to our guests. We kind of end the show almost the same way every time. Tell us something that you're reading or something you're listening to these days. You said you geek out on books, so I am on the edge of my seat with my pen in hand. What's Jim Allen reading these days?
Well, this may not shock you, Billy, but I read a couple books at a time. And what I do is sometimes I listen to audiobooks. I know it's wild, but bear with me. I listen to a lot of books that help me be a better human and to really focus on what's important. And I also listen to read a lot of business books. I need to understand things, but if my head isn't in the right spot as a good human being, or my brain isn't ready to accept the business knowledge, none of it's going to work. There's a balance for me for both of those things. So one of the big ones that I finished recently is Fly Into the Wind by Lieutenant Colonel Dan Rooney. He is the founder of Folds of Honor, and he was a fighter pilot. This guy has an incredible story, and it's just a very inspirational book. Also, I went through the Jocko Willink and David Goggins books. These guys are, Navy SEALs. David Goggins' Can't Hurt Me is really a inspirational book because of where he came from and what happened to him and how he's achieved what he's achieved. I love that. I feed off of that. I started reading a book recently called Manhood. It's also about, it's more about how, through boyhood and senses of adventure and all these things can impact the kind of man you become. And sorry, ladies, this one's more about the men, but the women that have men in their lives, whether it's a son, father, brother, or whatever, can learn a lot about this. It's so interesting. So those are the three that I'm kind of looking at. Now, I'm going to give a shout out to another one of my customers, Scott Blevins at Worldwide Equipment, sent me a hard copy book of Start with the Why. And that is, I had asked him on my last visit, sitting in his office, what is the biggest book you would recommend for me to read? And he told me, and I was going to download it, but then I go to work and there it is sitting there, signed by Scott with a nice handwritten message to read this. And I think what it comes down to is, why are you doing anything in your business and how is it impacting other people? So that book's been out a while and I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with it, but I'm going to revisit that thing and read through it. And again, for me, I feed from different avenues all the time and try to balance all that information out. So those are the big ones for me right now in my life.
I think Start with a Why has come up many times on our podcast.
Many times.
One of our most popular books so far is Start with the Why.
Mm-hmm. We need to try to get Simon Sinek on the podcast.
Yeah, that would be a good get for the podcast. So Jim, lastly, if we had an emerging leader sitting here in the meeting room with us today, and really you're talking to emerging leaders in your organization, in our organization, what would you say to them? What would be your counsel to the emerging leader who wants to begin their leadership journey? This is what you can begin doing today.
This is my favorite question, and my answer is so simple. People will get a lot of advice as they go through here in their journey in their career. My number one advice is check your ego. Every day, check your ego. Your job is too important to be all about you. Tie up some core values and add a big heaping dose of humility. Then remember the golden rule: do unto others as you would have them do unto you. The other thing is, get some mentoring, some coaching. Ask somebody you respect outside of your organization to mentor you and coach. You need somebody to talk to, especially when you get up to the C level. It's lonely at the top, and that's the truth. And so you have to make sure that you can vent these things off or come to better decisions and collaborate in a different way. So find a group, find someone in a similar role that you can bounce things off. Learn from each other, keep an open mind. The more support you have, the better chance of success that you will get.
Well, all I can say is, I have chill bumps on my arms from the last part of that, particularly check your ego. What an awesome way to end a great episode of the Nuts and Bolts of Leadership podcast. We've been with Jim Allen, is the CEO of Karmak. And Jim, what an honor it is to be back with you again. And I just wish you well. And I'm so thankful for you being a part of our day today.
I appreciate it, Billy, and thank you and Haley both for having me on. I know we kind of tried to touch base a while back, but I'm thrilled to be on, and I hope that people can learn something or get some inspiration as a result of me being here.
Well, all I can tell you is if they don't get inspired today, something's wrong with them. So, Jim, I appreciate you being on the podcast, and Haley and I will be right back with our closing thoughts. All right, everyone, welcome back to the meeting room. What an awesome episode with Jim Allen, CEO of Karmak. Haley, I can tell you that when I've got a page full of notes, the podcast was a hit. Jim he littered my page with notes and nuggets. So tell me what you have for your takeaways.
One of the things that I enjoyed that he talked about more, we get a lot of leadership nuggets every time we come on the podcast, but I really appreciate that he talked about one particular aspect of the business, which is they don't do contracts. And what that tells me is that they believe in their team so much that they will not hold their customers to a contract. And that tells me a lot about who they are as leaders, even without saying anything else. And
listen, I had the same thing. We want to earn it every day. I heard that we hire good and kind people. So many nuggets on this show. I helped them blow their own mind. Lots of nuggets, lots of leadership nuggets here. But the thing that I come away with Jim Allen, it's not just what he says, how he says it. He is such a passion, such a dynamic leader, and I'm just so appreciative of how he does what he does. So I'll give you the last word.
I think it's important when we talk about our language. We were just talking off air about our glossary and talking about how we speak to our teams. Jim does that in some of the best ways. And knowing how to speak what you're trying to say is so important. I think that was great.
All right, Haley, till we meet again, tighten up.
Tighten up.
Thank you for joining the Nuts and Bolts of Leadership podcast, brought to you by the employee owners of Threaded Fasteners. If you enjoyed our conversation, please subscribe to, rate, and review the Nuts and Bolts of Leadership wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. Do you have a leadership story to tell or a question to ask? Email us at podcast@threadedfasteners.com. That's podcast@threadedfasteners.com. This show is made possible by our family at Threaded Fasteners, Inc. Our mission is to create value in and for the people we serve. Interested in learning more about TFI and how we create value in our team, in our communities, and in our customers? Visit threadedfasteners.com. Thank you again for listening. I'm your co-host and producer, Haley Gibson.
And I'm your host, Billy Duray.
This show is edited and produced by Johnny Glenn and our friends at Deep Fried Studios.